Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the FrostBytez Gaming Experience Part 8, I believe it is. Yes, Part 8 of the Pokemon Blue walkthrough, continuing on the second half of the SS Anne, or is it the SS Annie? I never actually did check, but whatever, call it as you wish. It's about all the same, no matter what name it may or may not be. It all starts with an A, so let's just call it the SSA. Aha, there we go. So, even though I do say good evening, for me, it is literally about 10 in the morning, because I completely forgot to get the rest of the audio parts done for this week, which I've got 2 left to do. And so I gotta get these done so then they can be uploaded in time. So, yeah, Will's a little bit frantic at the moment. Less frantic, though, because I also thought that I had to get a one and done for the week, and then found out, oh no, it's not a one and done this week, that's next week. So, a little bit of a breath of fresh air. I just gotta do 2 more parts of Pokemon, just make sure that they're all ready and good to go, and all that great stuff. So anyways, yes, it is quite early in the morning, but like always, I'm always going to say good evening because I pretty much upload in the evenings, and no matter what time it is that you guys are watching it, it's going to be, you know, good evening to me regardless. So whatever, that was a huge ramble over absolutely nothing. As you can see, when I'm put in a situation where I don't have any Pokemon stats to go over, I can't really fill the voided time, and it was, you know, looking back, it was much easier in Gen 2 because you had the day, the morning, afternoon, and evening times in which you can catch certain Pokemon. In Gen 1, that wasn't a thing, and I don't even, I don't think it was ever a thing ever again, minus Gen 2 and then the remake of Gen 2 and Gen 4. I know in Gen 5, they introduced like seasons, but that was more of a month-to-month basis and not a time basis. But I'm wondering if they actually did bring in like morning, afternoon, nighttime, like different times that you could catch certain Pokemon like this generation did. I don't know. But it sure, you know, when you don't have the morning, afternoon, evening stats to go through, it makes going through the stats a lot faster than, you know, anticipated. So even when I do have to do the stats, it's kind of easy just to kind of like throw them out there. But anyways, with that said, how many hockey fans do I actually have when it comes to this channel? Because let me tell you, just to really prove how late I got to doing the audio portion of this video for this week, that was some game 1 between the Golden Knights and the Capitals 2 days ago. Like, wow. I am not ashamed to admit that I jumped on the Vegas bandwagon this year. Me being a Seattle person, I don't really have a team to really root for. The only 2 teams I really ever found myself rooting for since I was a kid were the San Jose Sharks and the Tampa Bay Lightning, which are really 2 weird teams to pick, but you gotta understand, young Will would pick his teams based on generally one of 3 merits. Merit number 1 is, are you from Seattle? Me being a Seattle kid, of course I'm going to cheer on the Seattle team first, but even then, number 2, Child Will was always like, how cool is your color scheme? So even before I knew, like, you know, the best example is the Seattle Seahawks, obviously. Even before I knew that, you know, I should be cheering for them because I'm from Seattle, I would cheer for them as a kid because I loved the colors green and blue. Growing up as a kid, those are my 2 favorite colors. So when you have those 2 together, it's like, cool, you are my favorite team right now just based on the colors. And then you get a little bit older, and then you're like, oh, and, you know, I'm from Seattle, you're Seattle, so I should just root for you anyways. You know, that's kind of how the mind of Will worked as a child. And then generally number 3 is, how cool is your team name / logo? You know, 90s, the Seahawks logo, now that I look back at it, pretty cool. Didn't really interest me that much as kid Will. It looked a little bit weird to me, but, you know, again, I went for the color scheme first, so there we go. But then, like I said, I'm in terms of hockey, you know, San Jose Sharks, because Sharks. The arena is called the Shark Tank. How cool is that? So Sharks fan as a kid, and then Tampa Bay Lightning because I loved lightning as a kid because, Seattle, it rains all the time there. You deal with a lot of thunderstorms. So I like lightning, and I like rain. So when your team is called the Lightning, I'm going to cheer for you. And I also thought, even though it's really simple, it's just like white and blue, I kind of thought that the color scheme of the Tampa Bay Lightning was also pretty cool. And the San Jose Sharks, obviously. I do like their color scheme. But those are like the two teams, hockey-wise, that I really, liked growing up as a kid. And that kind of stuck with a little bit. The only other reason that I really go out of my way to kind of cheer for the San Jose Sharks is because majority of my family lives in California, and close relatives of mine live in Santa Rosa, which I think is like an hour away from San Jose or so. So it's like, now it's like, I cheer for them because I always cheered for them when I was a kid, but, also kind of cheering for them because, they're in the same area as my family, so I kind of feel like, okay, there's like a small little bit of a connection there, nothing too huge, but, it's a little bit of something. But man, this year I really jumped on that Golden Knights bandwagon, like, entirely. Like, I just think it's so cool. Hockey, for anyone that doesn't know, was a sport that I played when I was younger. I played it for, I want to say, 4 years or so. I didn't play it that long because it's a really expensive thing to do, especially in the area I lived at. It was not sponsored by the school, so all like the equipment had to come from the family, all the traveling, family money, staying in hotels, family money, being able to pay for like the whole season, family money, like everything our parents in the area that I grew up in had, they had to be the ones to pay for everything. It was not sponsored by the schools like every other sport in our city was. So it was really expensive to do. So I was only able to do it for about 3 to 4 years. And at about the time that I was sitting in my last year, I kind of just wanted to do other things, but it was really fun for me regardless. So hockey was a sport that really stuck with me. And so, it's one of my favorite sports to watch. Admittedly, I did kind of, I don't watch it nearly as much as I used to, because back in, I think it was 2002, 2003, during that season, there was the big NHL strike going on. And around that time, James started playing football, or he didn't really start playing football at that time, but he was taking football more seriously at that time. So I really wanted to get into like what was going on with football. And obviously, it's like, hey, I've actually got a Seattle team that's, in football that I can cheer directly. So during that season, I got really into football. Like 2002, 2003 was like the year where like, it went from being just like, it's a fun thing to watch every now and then, Kid Will, to I'm pretty much going to know every single player's name and their stats. Well, not really their stats, but like just general information about them, and really got on the Seahawks, and it was a really good time too as well, because of Matt Hasselbeck, just such a good team at that time. So it was like a really good time to be a Seahawks fan until 2005 hit, make the Super Bowl, lose it, very controversial, all that stuff. Will, super mad, super fuming. People in my town were usually one of three fans. They're either a Broncos fan, but only when they were winning, a Packers fan, which, to the credit, most Packer fans in the area that I grew up in were Packer fans no matter what. Even if they were terrible, they were big-time Packer fans. And the Steelers, kind of the same thing. Even if the Steelers weren't doing so well, people were generally, really big fans of them. It was only the Broncos, where it was mostly a bandwagon thing. People would only really cheer for the Broncos when they would win, and when they would lose, you wouldn't hear too much about them. But Packers and Steelers, win or lose, you would hear about them in my town. So, of course, Seattle loses to Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl, and Will's fuming because he pretty much sees a bunch of dirty ref work. And yes, that was a sleaze job. I still haven't let go of it. I'm more calm about it now. But I'm still never going to let go of the fact that they should have won that Super Bowl, but I digress. But, don't get sympathy from anybody, because everyone's either a Packer fan or a Steeler fan, and it was just fun to hate the Seahawks even back then for some reason. Like, people think that, you know, the hate for Seahawks is really strong these past couple years, which generally it is. But even back in, like, you know, the 2000s, I guess it was just like a sport of like, how much can we truly hate Seattle and how much can we truly make Will just be the most miserable child. It was not a fun experience. Not gonna lie, it was not fun. But yeah, got super into football, which then kind of made me fall out of hockey because, you know, when you really think about it, even now, the biggest thing, in my opinion, that football has over every other sport is just how generally short it is. It feels like you can really just keep up with football so easily because of the 1 game a week deal, only 16 games, and then 1 game a piece in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. You know, it's just a little bit easier to keep caught up with as opposed to any other sport, especially baseball, that I swear has like 873 games a season, and then they do best of 37s in their playoffs, you know, and it's like, I can't care enough about a sport where I've if I miss a day, I miss like a super important game. I can't do that. I just can't, you know, and even with like hockey, you know, in the 80s, or I can't even remember how many total games they have, but it's pretty up there. It's really hard to keep consistent with it, you know, and the best of 7s, I get it. It's better for determining the true best team because the best team could have 1 off game and lose to the inferior team. Obviously, the biggest example of that, New England Patriots against the New York Giants, 2007, where, yeah, obviously, you know, everyone would say the Patriots were the better team, but during that game, the Giants were the better team. And I still believe that if they did do like a best of 7 in that particular series, I still think the Giants more than likely would have won because they just had the right team and the right scheme that countered the Patriots. Because I remember that year, even when they went against the Patriots in the regular season, the Giants, like, almost beat them. Like, they just had the right team and system that could fight off the Patriots very well. Kind of like I've got the right team and the right system to fight off my rival. Already, once again, we're going against a rival. Whatever. You know, he has his Raticate. I thought we killed it when it was Rattata, but apparently he evolved it to Eradicate, and then we kill it before going to the grave. Yeah. So, my bad. Anyways. So, yeah. I get that, where it's like, you know, with a best of 7, you could pretty much prove who's the best team because, you know, if you win 4 out of the 7 games, then yeah, you've proven that you are the best team. You could have 1 bad game and still be good. But see, I've never liked that idea because to me, it's like if you really are the best team, you shouldn't have an off day on the biggest game of your season. You know, you're in the Super Bowl. If you have an off game, then you're just not the best team because you shouldn't have an off game on the Super Bowl. This is like your one big game, you know, maybe a bad play here and there, but if the entire game you're just like, yeah, we didn't play like we normally do, well, then that makes you not the best team. You know, that's just kind of the way I see it. It's always a big back and forth with sports people on what's better, a best of 7 or a best of 1. You know, I think even if, like, they went to a best of 5, I think it'd be even easier to watch because it's like, okay, then it's not nearly as long, but we got to pad the ratings as best we can if we're not football because we just got to get noticed one way or another kind of thing. So, I don't know. Take that as it is. I do hope that Seattle does get the hockey team. I know that they've already basically sold out for the 2020 season, but it doesn't feel like anything's set in stone just yet. So, you know, keep my fingers crossed because whatever team they are, I will damn well cheer for them. You know, I mean, it's still, I mean, I don't know exactly because when it happened, I want to say it was in the 40s, maybe even earlier than that. I'm not 100% sure because the biggest thing that Seattle has hockey-wise is being the first American team to win the championship before it was called the Stanley Cup, I believe. And that was always a really cool thing to me. And I always felt a little bit weird that the very first American team to win, you know, the hockey championship eventually just didn't have a team anymore. You know, but back then it wasn't even the NHL back then. It was like a whole entire sub thing going on. So, you know, it sucks, but like I kind of get it in some cases. And I was always like, say, I'll ever get a hockey team back, you bet your ass I'm going to be cheering for them. And oh yeah, you bet your damn ass I'm going to be cheering like crazy for that team when it eventually gets, you know, its hockey team back. But right now, go Vegas Knights. I just think it'd be really, really cool if, from what I can understand, I did a lot of research into this, you know, I've never seen a full-on expansion team win the main title their very first year. You know, like the closest thing to that, I think, is the Baltimore Ravens, but they weren't even an expansion team. They moved, that was the year they moved from Cleveland, and I don't even think it was their first year. I think it was their second year they won the Super Bowl, but I could be wrong. It might have been their first year, it could have been their third year. I don't know exactly, you know, how long it was between when Cleveland moved to Baltimore to become the Ravens and then they won the Super Bowl. But again, that's not even a full expansion team. As far, like I said, as far as I can see, this would be the very first time that a full-on expansion team would win like the ultimate prize their very first year in the league. That'd be so cool. Anyways, part's over. We talked nothing but like hockey and sports. We'll probably do more of that in the next part. Who knows what's going to happen in the next part. But you guys enjoy the rest of your evenings. Catch you guys in the next part.